First of all, in terms of just the kind of the methods of work and the people that you work with, I didn't feel any difference because the Malaki from the New York Times has been story for before, and the kind of the network seemed the same. What we do insist on when we publish with the New York Times is to have also our own version of events. It's a kind of a backstory. Is to have our own story. So, you know, when we worked on Duma, we did our part of in the kind of like the stack of expertise and in workflow that was necessary. And usually what it is now, when forensic architecture collaborate with Bellingcat, etc., is that we understand that architectural, spatial model, precise ones, are a way of creating relations between images that are otherwise very hard for the public or even for investigators to see the relation between. So it's about navigational viewing. You have a model, you locate each of a dozen, 100, sometimes more, sources that you have in space and time. You create a time-space navigation, and the model, just like in a computer game, becomes a way of navigating between sources. Not only image sources, sometimes audio, sometimes material evidence that is found on the ground. In fact, just to go back to kind of like the history of the practice, as forensic architecture, indeed my work prior to that was looking at war crimes committed by architects. So I was looking at the way in which Israeli architects were using, you know, their own tools of their trade and kind of like on the drawing board, you know, designing settlements, colonies, roads, fences, checkpoints, and other bits of infrastructure in the West Bank in order to effectively squeeze people out as part of a policy of domination and ethnic cleansing. So these were very slow violence. This is the idea of slow violence undertaken on the drawing board. Then we started to look like archaeologists at blasts and analyzed you know, remains of buildings and ruins, much like an archaeologist analyze an ancient sort of ruin site. We would look at a contemporary one. And right now, in kind of like working with open source organization like Elliot, like also with New York Times team, it is about the architectural model becomes a navigational tool to synthesize and cross-reference a whole lot of other material.
And the other points.
Just in saying that we like to work with other organizations. Often we have slightly different emphasis, and then we reserve always our right to publish separately. And in Duma, we publish something quite significantly separate. Yeah.
But at the same time, didn't you?
At the same time or after, yeah.
Yeah. Samane, do you want to come in on forensic architecture more generally?
Sure. So I think one of the investigations that we did with Bellingcat actually was a test ground for this idea of how do you bring a kind of a body of material, a large body of, say, images and films of a crime scene all together in a place in a kind of a 3D model. And how do you set it up so that it's streamlined, that you can do it very quickly, you can kind of like figure out, you can pinpoint everything in time and in space. And then how you can, and it was interesting that it was that doing that we could yes, understand the link between certain things and how events had unfolded, but also pinpoint areas that were blind spots that we couldn't see, that we couldn't, you know, like there were the gaps in the story in a way. And so by bringing everything together and creating this, we use it as a way of kind of like calling for more information. It was the investigation on Oscar Perez in Venezuela, and so that was in a way interesting, no? Like because by bringing things into space, we could understand. Okay, no, they were at the top level of the building, then they went down. So you know, really like by bringing images and films into space, you could really kind of like understand the movement of people. But then also you could understand the gaps.